So welcome to my 406 Coupé. Let's go for a drive. I have to get off my driveway. 406 Coupé was designed by Pininfarina, well known for the Ferraris. And of course the collaboration between Pininfarina and Peugeot has been long established and has been widely known for making great designs like the 505, 504 and such and so forth. But when the car was introduced in 1996, it was especially an important car because most of at that time cars were coming out that were like sedans, and the niche coupe was still something that was being created. Nowadays we have all these modern SUV type of vehicles, crossover coupes, you name it, but back then this was really something special, and it really earned also the title of being the poor man's Ferrari. The 406 engine was designed of course by Peugeot itself. Pininfarina drew the car and made the concept for the car, but the assembly took place in the factory in Turin. Between 1997 and 2005 there were about I think 107 or something like that, 107,000 units were made, and these units were subsequently produced and spread out. Most of them went to of course France. Vive la France, let's keep it at that. First editions included a 2-liter petrol engine, a 3-liter V6 gasoline car, and later also the 2.2 gasoline was introduced. During that time, end of the 1990s, 2000s, Peugeot was famous for creating good handling cars. Of course, famous for creating the 80s icon 205 GTI and cars like that. Because of their heritage, or at least they were creating cars that drive well and also looked quite good. But the 406 Coupé was something else. It was completely different in terms of shape and size. None of the bodywork was shared with the 406 sedan. Currently I'm driving my 406 Coupé, which is a 3-liter V6. This is the second generation. The first one produced 193 brake horsepower. I think this one has 210. It has a V6 angle of 60 degrees. It has double catalytic converter. Other stuff that it has compared to the other one is a variable valve timing, a double overhead camshaft. The second generation V6 also went to Porsche for some extra tuning to make it more economical and more flexible. The engine is quite easy to drive. It has a very butter smooth, they would call it in Dutch. It means that it has a lot of torque. It has 285 Newton meters of torque. It's very smooth. You can take a roundabout in third gear and just easily set off. So it likes to, if you want to drive very slowly and smoothly, it's fine. If you want to push it until 6,500, it also does that. But this car was mainly created to, of course, eat miles or kilometers on the highway. It has quite stiff damping, but the springs are not very stiff, so it's really like a comfort setting. I'm currently driving the 5-speed manual, so what can I say about that? The gear strokes are long, so sometimes it feels a bit like a boat. When the car was introduced, there was also a choice of the 2-liter engine, but if you really want something, of course you would like the 6-cylinder engine, which I'm currently driving, because it's so it suits the character of the car. I never drove the 2.2-liter later version of this car, So I don't exactly know how that one would drive compared to this one. But mine has done 260,000 kilometers. I will put it somewhere. What's that in miles? The base was used for the Renault Clio V6, like the sports car version. So you know it. This engine, the base at least, is very versatile, and it can be put in different kind of surroundings. I'm recording this video now because I'm at the point that I might sell this car. I've owned this car for 15 years now, and I'm currently looking for something along the lines of electric vehicle. For some this would be swearing, but after so many years of driving this car, I am looking forward to try something different. It's still a nice car to drive, it's still smooth. Also, as I'm Dutch, sometimes if you go to the Autobahn, it's not slow. Of course, if you max it out, it's about 240 kilometers an hour. That will mean on the speedometer it will be like 250, 260. The automatic version of this car is known to have also been sealed for life, but if you look at the reports on the diverse fora about 406 Coupé enthusiasts, you notice that it's not possible to have it sealed for life, so to say, so you really need to change that oil. And that gearbox is also about 200, 250, then you need a revision of it. This one has done 260. I'm still on my first clutch actually, as far as I know, so that's quite a good car. In terms of driving, as I said, it has long gear strokes. Also the clutch is quite high, it always has been. It's not like the clutch is done or anything, but it's just very the bite point is just very high. So versatile engine, easy to drive, quite quiet also, comfort. It has climate control, it has heated seats. What else? It still has an ashtray because the French like to smoke, of course. It has electric windows, electric mirrors, foldable. What do you call it in English? It's the don't know the word. I will look it up. But it's illuminated. These things here, these are illuminated in with lamps, so the missus can actually view herself in the dark. It has 4 seats, so the back seat is chaired, so to say. It's not like a bench. Seats are Recaro. Wheels came from Baby S, so German wheels. In all sense, it was a high quality standard of what they were trying to create. And it's been a pleasure driving this car. It still is. It's not a bad car. It's not a bad ride. It still still quite competitive compared to the other cars. In terms of fuel, I get V-Power or 98 E5, but I don't think they add anything. At the time that they added E10 to the ethanol to the fuels here in Europe, or especially in the Netherlands, I changed the fuel to V-Power. So that makes that it's a little bit more expensive to drive, but it also drives more kilometers. So in general, it's about the same. Cheaper fuel means less kilometers. I think if you drive it carefully, you can do 1 liter on 11 kilometers. But if you go quickly on the Autobahn, it's a very different story. I also, for a while, drove this car actually like the poor man's Ferrari, with Ferrari wheels, Ferrari 360 wheels. Right now I'm driving the original 16-inch wheels again, and also in terms of fuel economy, that really makes a difference. Well, you don't just buy this car just because it looks pretty. you also buy it because it drives very nicely, or if it's quick on the highway or anything like that. But you also like it, of course, to be a bit speedy on the highway. The 406 Coupé is quite, well, soft or mild what comes out of the exhaust. So at some point my exhaust broke, and then I put a different kind of exhaust under there. But it's still subtle. Once I had a 106 GTI, and then at some point I put a Group N hollow pipe damper in there, and once I did that, that was really loud. You could really hear me from 2 blocks away coming. And now, well, if you're 40 something, then you think, well, I don't want to be that loud anymore. But this new exhaust I have or put under it is a lot more quiet compared to that Group N exhaust. But still, it has a nice noise. If you compare it to the original one, the 406 Coupé is very well insulated. It has under the bonnet, it has all these what do you call it, insulation material, etc., etc., because it has been made for to be a real cruiser, of course. But yeah, of course it can also go quick if you want it to. Let's see if it wants to go quick here. So it still goes quickly if you let it. Mechanical wise or maintenance wise, the 406 needs the timing belt every 100,000 or 10 years. Well, 120, I think, 120,000. But yeah, it's a big job. It takes a lot of hours. Half the engine needs to come out. So yeah, that's something you don't want to do that often. So make sure if you want to buy one that it's either been done and that it doesn't have to be anytime soon that it needs to be done. Other stuff I noticed, I don't know if this is because I have Michelins. At some point I got Michelin Cross Climate, and the rear tires, so this car is front wheel drive, but the rear tires really started cupping at some point. So the surface, isn't very equally worn, and that makes noise. So at certain RPMs you really have some noise, and I don't know how or why this happened, but at some point this happened, and I also once put lasers on it, so I got it aligned, and that really doesn't make much difference. So it's either the Michelins or the geometry of this 406 Coupé. I actually don't know if what's the answer to that one. But I had it with multiple Michelin tires, the Pilot Sport or the Cross Climate ones. It really didn't matter which ones I used or chose. It both had the same problems, but it's a bit of a nuisance. Also, other maintenance things, wheel bearings. On my 106 GTI, I lost a lot of wheel bearings all the time, or they broke. On this car, I never had these things. The only thing I did have was at some point the car sometimes wouldn't start. But of course, this car is more than 20 years old, 24 years old. So there was a corroded wire actually. So it was just some corrosion. It was nothing bad, so to say. And in terms of electronical gremlins, when I just bought the car, there was a small problem with the ABS, and it was not so much that the ABS didn't work. It worked a little bit too well, but the drive shafts on this car, of like most probably, have these rings to measure the ABS, and those rings were cracked. So after they fixed that, I never had a problem with the ABS again. And considering this car it's quite bulletproof. French cars are usually not high, or at least in people's opinion, they're not high on the reliability list. But what I've seen and what I've heard, this 406 Coupé is quite bulletproof, so to say. But yeah, people might have different opinions on that. Things if you want to let her. And it's not lightning quick, or at least not for these days. If in terms of 200 horsepower is of course these days quite normal, but in the 2000s, 1990s, this was of course a car without a turbo. I remember that the Golf GTI at some point came out, and that one had a turbo and 200 horsepower, but this one does it with 6 cylinders, and that just makes a big difference. It just feels very different. That was one. Let's keep it at that for now. And also in terms of noise, it's quite insulated still. It has of course these frameless doors, and that also sometimes can give you a little bit of noise, but this one is, as said, well insulated. Just a very nice car to drive in general, especially as it has been built as a GT to eat up the kilometers, go as quickly on the Route de Soleil as possible, or wherever you want to go for that matter. But I don't think this car feels at home on your hometown bendy indoor kind of roads. It's too big for that, and it's also definitely not a cornering beast, so to say. I also own a 205 CTI, so a convertible, and yeah, that one really feels very different. That one really goes through the corners like it's nothing, and this one, yeah, it has a bit of trouble. The weight shifts a bit, but after the weight shifts, of course, it works well. But the car does a bit like this, and then you think, I have a lot of confidence actually to do this corner, but in the beginning it feels a bit strange. So yeah, in terms of that, it of course also weighs 1460 kilograms. It's not very light. It's not heavy compared to these days, of course, but it's also definitely not a light car. This V6, and especially this lump is of course in front of the nose, or the bonnet is filled with a heavy engine, although it's aluminum for a big part. I think the car has yeah, some elegance to it. If you drive it now, or in 20 years, it will still be a timeless design. I think Pininfarina really did a good job in creating such a timeless design. I don't know how they did it, or what makes a car timeless, of course, but it's the raindrop shape, the classic shape, which of course makes a lot of yeah, it's just pretty, and it's of course always in the eye of the beholder, but yeah, it's nice to have a good looking car. It's also nice to have a good looking girlfriend. Yeah, but what I find good looking, the other person might not find good looking, so that's also something to consider. Because of there are only 1,000 of these coupes made, parts are becoming a little bit more difficult to find, but the enthusiasts still know their way, of course. You have these Facebook marketplaces or enthusiasts who collect these parts. But yeah, it's becoming more difficult to find original parts, or if you really have something broken, you either get it from a donor car, because not always everything is of course new and still available. Of course, if you think about it, all these cars will have at some point sort of the same issues. This car is a half Max one, that means it doesn't have an electronic stability program, but it does have ABS. It means that it's less prone to all kinds of electronic glitches. But in general, this car is quite good in terms of electronic failures. I haven't read a lot about things going wrong on the 406 coupes. At some point they also had a AMVAR, they call it, which was a setting like a sports setting. You had your dampers and struts were able to have different settings, but they used those sensors later for the ESP. So I think if you have AMVAR, you only have ABS and you never have an electronic stability program. Here we go again. Corner. And another one. Keeping it on the throttle. That's already 130. So it's quick enough to get you where you want to go as quickly as possible. And now we're on the highway, so this is actually the home territory or the natural habitat of this car. I think this GT characteristics really goes well with the car, and I think it's a very nice place to be. You just put it on the cruise control and drive. This car is a Vert Polo, which is green with the cognac interior. I think it's very nice. The seats also, the Recaro seats are really good, give you a lot of support. And yeah, I think it's just a very nice car. It's a shame to let it go. It's also, I didn't own it for 15 years because I didn't like it. I really do. But it's also nice to have something different after so many years. And to say that I think this car is timeless. It will still be beautiful in the years to come. And yeah, in 20 years it's still beautiful. It's just a very nice GT. And thank you Pininfarina for making this, and Peugeot, as the Coupé concept is very dead. They don't make those kind of cars anymore, of course, because of the fact that the Coupé segment is not a lot of units sold. So thank you for watching this, and maybe we see each other again on the internet. Bye.